Greetings, esports fans. Welcome to the Perfect World Major in Shanghai. This is the European RMRB. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. We've got some great Counter-Strike action coming at you today. And to help me set up all of the stories you need to pay attention to, we brought in some people on the desk. You might recognize them. We've got Maui Snake. We've got Dus Murray. How are you doing today?
It just keeps going, Richard. Some say that time is a flat circle.
They do say that. And we're here again.
We just keep going. We just keep repeating the events of our lives.
That's NIP's mantra, but more on that in a minute.
Yeah, good morning. I got to visit my daily ritual with the Romanian coffee robot in our hotel. She's very kind to me. She speaks to me in Romanian, so I don't understand what she's saying, but she gives me great coffee. So
she does. That's the main thing, because we definitely do need that.
Number thing for me, and I'm not going to get these numbers exactly right because I'm not a computer, despite what some might say. Really? I do try not to.
Okay.
Aren't you dating a computer though in the lobby?
Yeah, she makes me great coffee. That's all I'm going to say, and it helps me get here every morning. Shout out to my real fiance Tracy out there, who's actually probably watching. So that's my real one. But anyway,
just to make it abundantly clear, he's not cheating on you with a robotic coffee machine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not Joaquin Phoenix from that one movie where was it her? It's not me, I promise. But anyway, so getting back to this situation, look, I think people understand that there are very few players in the world who have an above 50% success rate on opening attempts. And the players that would be in that category would be players like Xantares, Malbs, Nico, Zywoo, and then Donk. The difference being Donk's attempt rate is so much higher. So the fact that he's able to keep up in success rate with the players that I named, but he's like well over 30% at taking opening attempts, it's absurd, guys. It's absurd. No one else is doing that. No one else really has done that.
Big as well, the big story, if you like. 3-0, German Counter-Strike.
Hey.
You have to wonder what year it is.
Hey, it's back.
Yeah, I know, and obviously kind of just be a smug a-hole about it. Come on, do it to me. There it is.
I wouldn't call that.
They did it! They did it! They did it! I said
can you do me a favor?
No, I know what you're gonna say.
No, Seb, can you do me a favor and show me what teams that Maui picked to go through from this stage?
Yeah,
with all this glorious big celebration. Did you put your chips on the line when it mattered?
I love big.
Did you put your chips on the line when it mattered?
And I love complexity. I never picked them either.
Guess who did? Me. So why don't you sit the fuck down, mate? You can't take credit for that. Look at that. Up top, Dust Big. No faith at all. Get out of here with this. I'm not going to let him go on the tirades again where he just glorifies himself as some savant when he literally didn't pick them to go through.
Oh my God.
Team in the sense that we've already talked about how young they all are. The other thing you have to consider is that most of these guys have been playing together since late 2023 and really didn't have any experience prior to that. Like, this is kind of their starting point. This team, they've been together for so long. They've grinded so many games of Counter-Strike online. They've played so many of these smaller tournaments. They played like 150 maps in the last 3 months leading up to this tournament. And what I really love about this team is it's just so well balanced. Like, you have someone like Jacasmo, who is a fantastic flex rifler who can entry, he can do extremity rolls, he can do whatever you want. Then you have Zero Fix, who is a true entry. You have Eschilla, a fantastic site anchor and peripheral role player. And then Fear has online been one of their better entry fraggers as an IGL. Not so much here at the RMR, but that's been fine because people like Eschilla and Zero Fix have stepped up. And the big one for me is Jumbo, because you don't see many true hybrids anymore in this game. He is not, I would ever call him a primary opper. Does he use to op a lot? Yes. Is he their main opper? Sure, but this guy rifles so much and is so effective with it. And they're kind of like NaVi in the sense that anyone on this team at any given point in time can entry frag. Their entry frag distribution is equal. They're all in like that 20% range for opening attempts. And so it allows them to be so flexible because there's never a moment where you have to wait on your guy to get into position. Like, they can just, clap on something as soon as they see it.
Yeah, Maui, you might say Jambo Unchained.
Oh, wow. The quotes I know from that movie are ones I wouldn't be able to say on broadcast.
No, yeah.
As most Tarantino films are.
We don't need to do that. Don't need to go there.
Well, here we are. We've spoken about it for the good 6 months, and we finally got to this point. Welcome to the 2024 Perfect World Shanghai Major. My name is Tech Girl. I am going to be your host on this early morning shift or late night shift, depending on where you're watching. Joining me on the desk to start off the major, Maui and Dust are here. Maui, you were with me for my first major when we were in Paris. You're now with Dust for his first major.
That's true.
It's a big time for you. You kind of guide us all into these big moments.
I try to do as much. Honestly, I almost lost it when that mascot was dancing behind you in the opening right there. That guy is just hilarious. I can't get enough of him. I also can't get enough of you, Dust. Seems like we just keep working together.
Our stars are aligned, our destinies are intertwined, and here we are again.
There's so much paperwork in front of you, Dust.
You know.
So many papers. What is going on there?
Just don't worry about that. We'll get there.
This is like, gives me a bit of PTSD from when I used to have a day job and we used to sit in meetings and my boss used to have all this paperwork in front of him. That's what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, no, Dust is over-prepared as always. And I think that the thing is that, the viewers appreciate it, okay? When Dust delivers, he really actually has a lot to say. You got to give this guy more time. In fact, Dust should just make every single Dust segment to a full-time podcast because the amount of research he's put in is pretty ridiculous at this point. Like, he is finding things about different teams' tendencies that I don't think anybody else is at this point, if I'm being frank.
I've been stealing his notes. He gave me access to his Google Doc. I've read them all. It doesn't help, but there we go. I know what's coming, and it's going to be impressive.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, unlike some of the other teams from the Asian region that have been able to break through in the past in Counter-Strike, they aren't relying on gimmicks to do it, which I feel like what Tyloo and Flash and some of these other teams done in CSGO's history was by just being super mechanically gifted, playing very fast-paced Counter-Strike, trying to break the game down with like new executes, whereas Mongols just plays a well-balanced version of Counter-Strike, more of a European style, maybe a little bit of scrappy play mixed into it, but for the most part, they play proper CS, and I think that they've obviously won the last couple of tournaments that they played in, beating some pretty good European talent to do it. I think that Blitz is pound for pound one of the best fragging IGLs in the world. I think Senzu has turned into one of the best entry riflers in the world as far as how many attempts he takes and how successful he is. And then the one thing I want to give them credit for as well is the fact that 910 has slowly but surely become a legit op threat, like someone you really have to count on. And when you compare Mizzino at the beginning of the year to who he is now today, he has developed so much as a player. And I feel like he's actually the X factor that really kind of kicks Mongols over the edge nowadays. Yeah, I think just to go to Mizzino, when I talked earlier about him being an evolutionary player, in my opinion, and how he performs, he used to be so passive. He used to just be like one of your lurk extremity players, really relied more on people like Senzu and Blitz and Techno to be like the opening force for this team. But now on a map like we're about to watch Anubis, while he is playing the A side, he is not some A lurk passive player. He will entry onto the A site with Senzu and Blitz behind his back and actually just be a real big threat. And for me, the big thing with this map is Mongols is just so well-rounded on Anubis. Like, they can play default. They can go for the faster executes. They are so fine-tuned. Their spacing and trading efficiency are exactly where we want it to be.
I'm still going to ride off the region. I don't see a North American team lifting the trophy for the major.
Oh, for the major. Okay, well.
Do you think they're gonna? Do you honestly think that you're gonna see a Liquid or a wild card in the playoffs?
Liquid can make playoffs for sure.
Liquid could. Liquid could. I'm not gonna send them there today, but
Liquid could definitely make playoffs.
We're struggling over in the Americas right now. Okay, we are an oppressed society. Okay, like we don't have a lot going.
Listen,
for us
as long as Liquid,
we got no handouts.
Look,
okay?
as long as Liquid can dodge FaZe and dodge a top 5 team in the world in like the last match for a playoff spot, they can make playoffs.
I love that they can make playoffs if basically they don't have to play against any top teams.
If they don't have to play Vitality, if they don't have to play NaVi, if they don't have to play
FaZe, if they can dodge,
they'll be FaZe this time. They'll be FaZe this time. They'll be FaZe this time.
There's 6 teams they have to worry about. They beat everybody else.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Okay, there we go, James. We obviously now need to wait for the next bunch of matches. It's going to be dependent on how that Imperial Pain game goes. But for us here, we are done. So far, though, first day of the major. That's your first major. What was your highlights since we've got those 4 games to look at so far?
Honestly, just being here was a highlight for me, man. Like, it's awesome getting to watch some great Counter-Strike with some people that I respect in the industry and working on this stage that was actually one of the last stages I worked on before I came back to CS. So really cool stuff. Just enjoying the Counter-Strike.
Let's go, Dust.
Hell yeah.
Well, that was so cute, and now I can't be cheeky back.
You can. Go ahead. Go for it.
I don't want to. There we go. Dust has had a good morning or evening.
Dust should be celebrated.
Oh, Maui, you have to go there.
This is like my biggest cheerleader. This is the biggest cheerleader ever, man. It's unreal.
Say, because for me, I like the Likowski move, but I'm concerned the last 2 months, and even now, like in the last few days, they don't look in sync. They look like they're still struggling to figure out who plays where.
I think you have to be fair that it's not just a 1-for-1 trade for Likowski and BRZN and trying to make him learn a new role. They also just may drop the IGL of the team, so that's a big move. They've moved Exit to a completely new role as well, being more of an extremity player when he was like an entry fragger IGL. So while that gives them a second voice to help drop out, it still changes who has the last word. So there's a lot of moving parts. But what I have seen Made in Brazil do recently to try to help make things a little bit better is that they just play a little bit more of an aggressive play style now. They just kind of group up and smash, and that really kind of allows Lukosi to not have to worry about playing default spots he's not used to. He can just kind of gang up with Insani and just be that trading force, and I think it's allowed him to be a little bit more comfortable.
There's no way to look at Insani's game and say anything other than this is just pure impact.
Here's the thing. He is taking an opening attempt amount that is equivalent to a person like Donk, Zersh, and Flames. He's in that like 30% and above opening attempt rate, and he's over 50% successful. There's only a handful of players you can name that do that in the world. You know, Malvs, Nico, you know, Ziwu, Donk. Like, there's only so many, and he's one of them. I tried to say this earlier. You have to start putting Insani in that conversation as one of the best entry fraggers in the world, period.
When Blade, in contention for the greatest coach of all time, name drops you and says that he outplayed you on one part of the map, everybody better listen.
You know what's crazy about that, Mally? He's talking about Banana on Inferno, which is a new position for Insani. He just took that up when BRNZN left to let Lukosi play middle, giving up his own middle position. So the fact that he is scaring people in new positions that he's only played a handful of times, that adds to the credence of just how strong Insani really is.
I wanted to be a bit more creative on the disc, so I wrote a love letter to G2. It goes, roses are red, violets are blue. I know you like A, but there's B too.
Oh my God. If anybody in any comment section after this game says because of that last round that Snacks was running circles around 3D maps, I will find you, I will hunt you down, and I will downvote your comment and report it, okay? That was... For G2 to win this game while A-execing 4 rounds, 3 of which were in a row, that is absurd, Dust. That is everything that 3D Max stood for. The tactical flashing, the space taking, the clutching, the way they were able to play off of each other. It is spat on in the face by a Snacks who called the same strategy 4 times on T side. The exact same strat.
Dude, Snacks is that asshole who just throws rock like 5 times in a freaking row, and you're just like, dude, please. Like, no one does that. No one throws quintuple rock. But you know who runs A execs every single freaking round? G2 does. But you know what? It actually works. And here's why it works. It's because, you know, this is going to be self-serving, by the way, so I'm going to lose a lot of fans here. But in StarCraft, there's this concept where you get a unit composition that's so good that you can literally just hit the A button, which is attack, and then you click on the thing, and you just let your army go forward. And that's what G2 can do. When you have Nico, Munisi, and Malvs, you can literally just trebuchet them into a site with basic utility, and you can do it over and over and over and over again, like Marshawn Lynch would say, and you just hit them in the face over and over again, and you just win. It's mind-boggling, but it happens.
I'm picking up a little bit of frustration from both of you. Why does this frustrate you so much?
Because it doesn't stand for what we know and love when it comes to tactical
We love Counter-Strike, that's why.
Because we like Counter-Strike for not being Call of Duty. And the problem is that Snacks just has the best Call of Duty players on his team right now. And so it doesn't matter what the strategy is, the execution will always work.
I mean, here's the thing about NaVi, right? Prior to that World Finals thing that we're talking about, where everything came to a screeching halt, this team attended 6 straight finals and won 3 of them. You've already mentioned they're the reigning world champion. They are another title away, if they can do it here in Shanghai, from having their own era. And they've done it their own way, which is what's been so impressive. They have created a team dynamic that not many other squads have, where they have a rifling core where every single one of them can be entries, every single one of them can be playmakers on the edges of the map. They have an equal distribution of opening tips on the T side. Not many other teams have done that. And in fact, they've inspired future teams. They inspired Passion UA to play that style. They've inspired the evolution of Mongols, I think, with Benzino to play a role like that. And so the fact that they've had that much impact on the international scene, there's still something there to me, even if they've been shaky lately.
And the problem is that the individuals on NaVi, we are not considering any of them as really being a world top 5 player right now.
Which is tough because I thought JL and Bit could have been in that top 5 conversation at different points throughout the course of this year.
On the fringe.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely top 10, though. There's no doubt about that, I don't think. I mean, just extremity playmakers, can entry when need be, great anchors on the CT side. Like JL and Bit, to me, were really it. But the issue with NaVi is, for one, their performances have fallen off lately. And then second, their map pool has started to fail them. They used to be the best map pool in CS, and they are still red hot on maps like Ancient, Anubis, Dust 2. Like, they are still very strong on those maps, but their Mirage has started to slip big time when they used to be the masters of that map. My issue is player performance. We're actually going to bring this up now. I built the graphic with the production team here, just kind of illustrate just how bad it's gotten for a couple of these players. And we'll start it off with JL, my boy. This is not the time to be having this happen. Just to explain this to you, over the last 6 months, this guy had a rating of 1.15. Not only that, but as an extremity player, he was still taking 25% of this team's opening duels. Again, everyone on this team's around 20 to 25%. Very good distribution. 51% success rate. So far at this major, 0.83 with a 36% success rate in opening duels. And this is a guy who, again, he plays extremities, but he's supposed to be a playmaker on extremities. And when they do go for executes, he can't be the guy next to Ema and Alexi B going for entries. And so for this guy, who was at one point potentially going to be considered a top 5 player in the world, the drop-off is staggering at this major. And guess what? It's not an anomaly. He had the exact same rating and the exact same flaws at the Blast World Finals as well. So what we thought might be a bump in the road has now all of a sudden become a downward slant that needs to be course corrected now. About Nerds, it's about time that we throw this guy's name out there because he is such an impactful player. His ability to create openings, his ability to be a trade fragger. Look at this, 1.17 rating across the RMRs and the major.
Yeah, he's their guy.
He is their guy. Look at what he's doing. He's taking 33% of their opening attempts on the T side, which is very high, by the way. Not many people take that much. He's at 58% success rate. Like, this dude is an absolute maniac on most of the maps, and he has just been such a star for them next to Dexter. And also, to give others kind of a little bit of credit, Tessa's overall numbers aren't that great, but his fearless entry fragging next to Nerds has still created so many opportunities for the rest of his team to help clean up, and they just look like a more well-oiled machine at this point. They've now had that time to bond. They've now flushed out some of their mid-round protocols, and they just look like a much sharper team coming into this playoff contention match, I should say. I mean, I think they're the favorites just because, look, like, we have definitely put like kind of a dark cloud over their performance lately, and it's deserved because of what they did at Blast World Finals. What they've done so far in Shanghai has not been up to the standard that we expect from NaVi, but we know what they're capable of. And as we go into this veto, Inferno being banned, we should see a Vertigo ban out of NaVi, and this is where it gets interesting because I'm not sure it does. I think Heroic can punish either Mirage or Nuke, whichever one they feel better with. Yes. I love this. I love this.
Yes,
go for the weakness that's been out there. Oh, wow. That's bold from NaVi because their nuke lately has not been up to snuff.
Damn, that's a surprise
so bold.
Too.
I don't know about that.
For me too. Okay, I mean, the first one is exactly where I wanted this to start, though. If we just, okay, Ancient Decider overall, good handshake map from what I've seen from both of them recently, but overall, with Heroic on Mirage, I have to remind everyone, if there was ever going to have been a NaVi era, and it feels like that dream is slipping away from us through this major, it was built on the foundation of Mirage. This is a map that they have looked devastating on. It is one that they have found consistency on, and it is, oh, okay, wait a second. Oh no, this is just a round. Yes, but I have to say that Heroic, by picking this, I have seen some tricks up their sleeve. A missed window smoke that they actually decide to push through to lurk through 3 other smokes to try to find an advantage. These little tricky tactics, I feel like Heroic, they've been in the lab when it comes to this map. I am starting to see some strategies out of them that look so perplexing.
I think this is a good example of what you were saying, the NaVi sort of run that they've had. At one point, Mirage was a big player, but when we look at how Heroic plays this, it's easy for them to potentially shut NaVi down.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. NaVi used to be the Masses Mirage, but that is now in the rear view mirror, in my opinion. They are 3-5 in their last 8 games, and they have looked very sloppy. Meanwhile, Heroic 9-2 in their last 11 matches, and a big part of that is Nerds. Yeah, Nerds is just so damn mobile on this map.
Did you see that play?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's walking through 3 smokes to just get the blind. He blindsides somebody.
And he'll do it all the time, whether it's dry, whether it's with utility, and it can be anywhere on the map. This guy can lead through connector. This guy can lead A site hits. This guy can lead B hits. He's also a guy who's going to be playing that A con position on the CT side, the star role, the most powerful CT position on the map. If Nerds can keep up the level that he has been playing throughout this tournament, they will win Mirage.
2 of the biggest brain coaches on either side, right? Sword picks Mirage. We've seen what Heroic did versus Spirit. Everyone knows Navi's weak, but Blade led it through. Blade said to Alexi B, they had that conversation. They said, we're good to go. How does NaVi bring it back here, Dust? What do they need to do? Who needs to step up and be online?
Bit and JL both need to step up. I mean, again, they play such important roles where they play the perimeter of the map, and they're usually playmakers there, but they're also, you know, Bit being an A anchor, JL being a big B rotator. Like, these are your star riflers that you rely on so much throughout the course of this year. We already talked about how JL's headed struggles. Well, Bit has as well. That's just, and what it's done is it's caused more pressure to be on expecting Alexi B and Ema to perform, and Ema is performing. Like, I do want to give some flowers out to somebody. He's done his job. He's been performing very well in his entry role. His rating's good. He's been playing very well. And even Alexi B's playing above his normal level individually. So those are some bright spots, but they got to get those other riflers engaged because Nurtus is playing so damn good, and so is Tessus and Shush.
But not had a great tournament.
No, sadly not. Sadly not.
I think we actually have an example, though, of those steps that gives us an idea of the fact that he hasn't come online. And I do think he's been the difference maker a lot for this NaVi lineup during the course of the year.
He's the other playmaker on the perimeter of the map.
Oh, geez, look at that.
It's tough. It's
Look
tough.
at that.
I mean, again, look, normally a extremity player, but his entry attempt rate is just as high as JL's and just slightly lower than Ema's. Again, it's a team that prides itself on everyone being able to make plays. But look at what's happened so far. You know, his rating in the toilet, his success rate is down 11%. This is just not really what we need to be seeing
They're
from
getting
these guys right now.
They're getting red.
It's
They've been
not
studied. The book's open. Everybody's read through every page of the Blade playbook at this point, and that's what Saw is trying to prove right here. That even though they were building this foundation of what could have been an era on Mirage, Saw is saying, we're going to take you down on it. The hubris from Saw and Kickstand to even go for that pick, I love it.
To quote one of our cancelled brethren, brutal, savage, wrecked.
You did work with him for quite a while. Sam.
I mean, heroic.
Wow.
Well, speaking of people having red eyes, I bet you all the fans of NaVi right now just crying all over the place at this. This is atrocious. What is this? This is the most embarrassing shit I've ever seen from NaVi in such a long time. Like, this is unbelievable. I just need Pit and JL to do something. What? Do you need some help? I'm an EMT. I'll fly to Shanghai right now. You want to need a Heimlich maneuver? You need to be defibrillated? I don't. Just tell me. I'll try. I'll try to make something happen.
Online.
They gotta get on. They have to, or they're gonna get. Dude. Oh my goodness. NaVi literally had an opportunity coming into Shanghai to have the first ever air in CS2. They won the last major. They had that run of 6 finals in a row. They won 3 of those. In a world of parity where we've had multiple champions, NaVi was the one constant that was constantly making finals appearances. Then you bomb the world finals and we give you a pass on it. Now you have a chance to make up for this major, and now you might even make freaking playoffs.
You're so mad.
Because they're supposed to be one of the best in the world. This is unreal.
They were supposed to course correct here, Sam. That's why we're upset about this, because at the end of 6 grand finals in a row, we'll give you a pass on that last event. Blade even had the perfect answer in the interview, saying that it's okay if we lose right now. It'll breathe some fire into us. But unfortunately, we're not seeing that fire. We're seeing a NaVi that is actually simply capitulating.
Welcome back to the Perfect World Shanghai Major. We've already had one bombastic quarterfinal. We're hoping for another when Team Spirit take on Team Liquid. I'm your host, Richard Lewis, coming in for this one, and joining me on the desk, we've got Dust Murray, we've got Yanko, and we've got 2 teams that have played each other in the not too distant past with perhaps a surprising result.
Liquid's kind of in this weird place where they've consistently been able to beat teams that are kind of at or below their level. They beat all the Americas teams on a regular basis. They'll beat a Virtus Pro. They'll beat a Gamer Legion. They've never played Mongols or Heroic, so we don't know where they stack up there. But when they play against elite level opposition, yes, they've beaten Spirit. Yes, they beat NaVi those first 2 best of 3s that they played with this 5-man lineup. But any other time they've gone up against like a FaZe or a Vitality or a G2, they haven't been able to get that big win to really catapult them into a top 5 conversation.
Yeah, well, let's start by talking about Team Liquid then. Obviously, technically the last hope for NA, although as we know these days, if you have an NA org, you'd very unlikely to have an NA roster. You've got to get some Europeans in to help you out. That's just the way it is right now. But overall, I think they've exceeded my expectations by being here in this final 8. When I first looked at this roster, I looked at some of the pieces, like Ultimate being inexperienced, JKS having a long time out of the game, and Twists being a new IGL. You put all that together and I wasn't convinced, but they've defied my expectations at least.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 main talking points about Team Liquid, or concerns that you have. One is the form of Yekindar. Will it keep, right? Yes. He's had a big slump, stepped it up at the major. Props to him. That's one of the reasons why they're in the playoffs. And the second one was Ultimate, who also hit the slump after an incredible sort of first showing for Team Liquid, and again has seemed to have found his groove again, right? And the reason for that is these are the 2 aggressive players on Team Liquid, and that's why you saw them not being able to find results as a team, right? Like, you're always playing in 4v5s. This is not, you know, condemnation on Twitch is IGLing. It's just hard to do it, especially against the level of opposition that Dust referenced. And here you see the other side of that coin is when they are able to find openings, when they do have rounds with advantages, all of a sudden it's all looking a little bit more smooth.
Yeah, I mean, right now you have a Liquid that's looking in pretty fine form. NaV, for instance, is topping the charts in a multitude of categories and is back to kind of his star self. But I think the two players you mentioned are absolutely the ones that we need to target, and that is Ultimate as an aggressive opera, but also a hybrid who will AK on the T side. He has picked his form back up in a major way throughout the course of, you know, his time in Shanghai. And then you look at someone like Yekindar. I mean, this is a guy that was struggling to find any success in opening duels at Rio or the Blast World Finals. But if you look at this, look down there, his success rate, 46% in opening duels on the T side, and he's doing it 40% of the time, which is probably the highest I've ever seen an entry fragger have to go in first. So the fact that he's been able to maintain that success rate with that number of attempts is fantastic. And then, yeah, you just look at Ultimate's numbers, they look awesome. He has a 67% success rate on the T side with his opening duels, which is very high for an opera, by the way. And then, yeah, I mean, Nash is kind of getting it done in all kinds of categories.
Go for those openings no matter what. Like that high opening kills attempt rate is going to maintain whether he has 2 kills in a half or 22 kills in a half. And that's why sometimes, you know, you live by the sword, you die by it. With in Yekindar's case, where probably you'd like it if things aren't rolling that well for you, you know, maybe there's a plan B, maybe there's something else in it, and that's why he's always the main talking point when we get to this Team Liquid roster.
I think people just need to know the giant leap that has taken place in that success in those opening duels that Yanko's talking about. I mean, at Rio in the Blast World Finals, this guy was like in the 28% success rate column. That's like worse than Kerrigan, by the way, if you just want a comparison point. So the fact that he's been able to catapult back up to a 45% success rate, that puts him up there with the entry fraggers that you know are successful. And with some of these other guys starting to make plays on the extremities, we've seen JKS and NaV be more willing to be aggressive, to make plays on the edges. That just gives them such more tools to work with to help open up rounds.
And a few thoughts about NaV. I mean, Yanko, you've made some comparisons in the past to him being like a Olaf Meister kind of character. He's had a fantastic tournament so far, and what I like about NaV overall, he has these stellar performances, but it's just so understated. It's not like a surprise when he has a pop-off. He just gets it done quietly in the background.
The silent killer, right? And I think it's a player that everyone would love to have on their team. A guy that seems to be a great teammate, just does his own thing, doesn't complain, doesn't whine. Whatever you call, he will execute it to the highest of his ability. Incredible game sense. I mean, the last time these two teams played, it ended on a incredible NaV 1v3 to win the series, right? To win the second map on Nuke. So I think he's even played better in this tournament compared to his usual level. So that's just been incredible for NaV, and you know, hopefully he can maintain that into the playoffs.
And aside from performance, it's also just about his versatility to me as a player. I mean, this is a guy that obviously plays a lot of extremity positions where he's just kind of holding, getting information, kind of letting the rest of the team kind of work. He's more of that mid to late round specialist, but you can see him help entry frag. You can see him go for plays when he has the intuition that he sees an opportunity to make something happen. And I think the biggest thing is he doesn't require a lot of resources to do this. Like, this is a self-made man on the server a lot of the time, and the fact that he can do so much for this team in so many different categories really just gives them such a big weapon at their disposal.
Now over to Team Spirit, their opponents. We've seen a Team Spirit that's very different here. Yes, they're in this top 8, but they haven't done it in as convincing a fashion as Team Spirit fans would like. And of course, we have to talk about the Batman and Robin combo of Shiro and Donk. The irony in this one, it's not really ironic, but the funny part in this one being that it's actually Robin that's doing the hard, heavy lifting, because Donk has just been phenomenal, lights out, as you would expect. The supporting cast is the term we keep using, not so much.
Yeah, really an absolute phenom, Richard, no doubt about it. Highest rated player in the tournament. 155 is a little bit ridiculous as well to maintain, and it has been a question towards this second season that we've had is, can they just keep up with him? Just do enough. Like, this kid can carry you to a tournament win, right? You just need to do sort of the bare minimum. Sure, Shiro is doing more than that. Zontek's a little bit better in this tournament too, but sometimes it just falls apart at the weakest links.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've seen kind of both sides of this that Yanko's describing throughout the course of the this tournament. You know, throughout the RMR run, yeah, sure, they did make it, but they were one of the last teams to do so, despite being a favorite to go 3-0 or 3-1. They had to kind of grind their way through, and even though they 2-0'd the last two teams they played, the eye test just didn't pass for me. They looked timid, indecisive. They seemed like the pressure was really getting to them, but I will say they broke through in the end. Like, the fact that they were able to get clean wins over NaVi and over Heroic to make it to these playoffs really helped, and we are getting help out of supporting cast for one. Shiro's playing great. Zontix has also been great, but I want you to look at this on the far right from Chopper. Chopper has changed the dynamic of this team in Shanghai. He is now taking a lot more of the first looks on the T side, and what they have done is they've put Donk in more of a trading position on executes, but also even when they kind of just take map control and default, they're leaving Donk in safer positions where he can play on his intuition. They can just leave him in a spot that they've captured, like mid, for example, and just let him work. You know, let him go for it when he feels like the time is right, and his performance has been fantastic, and I think the team flows a little bit better overall. There was certainly a period throughout the course of their time in Shanghai where Spirit did feel, again, a little bit indecisive, a little bit timid, not playing better, but I have seen them make strides, particularly on Mirage, where they've been able to kind of turn their default more methodical. They've been able to play through situations a little bit better. Their spacing and timings are just generally more optimal, and we are seeing Donk kind of thrive in a semi-new role. He's still entry fragging on some situations, but they've also kind of floated him into more of a mid-round scenario player, and we'll take a look at these numbers. As you can see, he's not quite entering as hard, but still super successful when he does. But just to kind of compare this really quick, I know the numbers on the screen can sometimes get boring, but sometimes. Second place in ADR, by the way, is Zaiwu at 94. Yeah. And then second in kills per round is also Zaiwu at 0.88. That's just the giant gulf in between where Donk is up at the top compared to the rest of the competition.
Yeah, that's actually crazy.
Yes, Donk, very aggressive, very good player. Yes, well, yeah. You know, no one else as aggressive, as good. Makes perfect sense. Unless Yekindar completely disappears again and Liquid has to sort of play 4v5 all the time on their T side, which I think would be insurmountable against the likes of Team Spirit. I feel like they're actually a decent favorite in this one.
Do you agree with that?
That one's tough for me because I think, look, like, we're not going to get too into the pick ban yet because that's coming later, but I do think Liquid's going to be the more favored team on Anubis. They should pick it. They should have an edge there. That should give them a guaranteed map in the series. But I think that Spirit are going to be able to exploit them on Dust 2. I think they're going to exploit them on Mirage. One of those maps is at least getting through. And then at that point, it just comes down to, can Liquid repeat their performance on Nuke that they did at the Blast Fall Final and actually beat Spirit, despite the fact, generally speaking, Spirit is going to be stronger on that map. So it depends on exactly how it shakes down, but I see Liquid getting a map here for sure. I think Anubis they can cash in on, but there's no really other massive strength where I could be like, Liquid's the clear favorite on this map. Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me in this match is going to be the difference in opping. You know, Ultimate, very aggressive opper. He's going to be going for picks. He's going to be helping entry with rifles on T side sometimes when you can't afford an AWP. Shiro, more of a backline player, more of a mid to late round specialist. And I think that dynamic is going to be really fun to watch play out because these teams have only played against each other one time. That's not, you know, a huge amount of data to work with. And when they did, it was a close game. And so I'm hoping for fireworks again here in the quarterfinal.
I'll start with you on this one, Dust. You said, just before we had to go back to the interviews, you know where it's not going to go.
Yeah, no Inferno, no Vertigo. We know that's the two permabans, but I think what'll be interesting is the picks because I think Spirit could exploit Liquid on either Dust 2 or Mirage. It'll be up to their choosing which target they want to go to first. If I am Liquid, I'm getting Anubis immediately. Last time they let it go to the decider map, I don't want to see that. I want them to go ahead and put their best foot forward now and guarantee themselves a map in the first two.
I don't know. I want to see if Liquid vetoes Dust, like, and lets Vertigo through. That's a gamble that they could take if they feel not confident. I wouldn't like them to do that because I think they had their opportunities on Dust 2 last time. I know the scoreline was dominant, but they were getting reset every time. A couple of unfortunate rounds for them, so they should feel like if they switch things up a little bit, they can have a good chance on the map, and that's what they do with the Vertigo ban. Like, Dust 2 is still in the pool for Team Spirit. They do go for that Anubis pick this time around. Spirit straight to Dust 2.
Yeah, ban Mirage Liquid. Ban Mirage Liquid.
I think Ancient here probably something that we see as the decider. And for Liquid, Anubis and Ancient are two of their highest win percentage maps, so I think they'll be happy with this one.
This is the best.
You can't see it at home. Dust's literally punching the air right now, by the way, guys.
Liquid played this veto perfectly. I did not want them to let Anubis go to a decider. I wanted them to pick it now. They're 13-2 on this map. It's their best map. They might be the best team in the world on it, in my opinion. Go ahead and get it out now. Give yourself a chance to go ahead and start with the big one, because Spirit's probably going to punish you on D2, but Ancient, that's a coin flip for me.
And we'll see a little bit. Spirit deciding to pick CT side on Anubis, right? On Liquid's pick. We see teams a lot pick T side, actually, because it is a T-sided map, and also you get to dictate the pace of the game at the very beginning, right? Obviously, it goes both ways. Might be tough on stage to get into the swing of things, right? And that way they can steal away a couple of extra rounds on CT. But yeah, for me, I have all the confidence in the world in Team Liquid to take this one home.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more just about the matchup, Dust, on Anubis specifically.
Sure.
You said Team Liquid might be the best team in the world on this map. Tell me why.
I think it's just because, A, the success record is there, but also it's just I've seen them constantly innovate. Like, they already have a great foundation of, Twist and, Yekindar being your aggressors and Canal and mid, having NAF and JKS playing the extremities. But now those two extremity players are willing to go for plays, willing to go for openings. And then we can see Yekindar be mobile and how he assists things. Yekindar hasn't adjusted as a way to see more of the game, so maybe he could, pick out players a little bit better. But other than that, yeah, I've just seen them constantly evolve in Anubis across the year, and they've looked good on it.
Hey, man, if I was going up against Donk, I'd try to get into the game as much as possible, any advantage that I could get. And here is where, sometimes you talk about Spirit and Chopper plays mid, right, on a map like this. Donk is mostly towards connector, towards B, so it's sometimes Shiro, yes, he moves all over the place, but sometimes it's hard for these guys to get activated, right? I think that's where you sort of give the edge over to the side of Team Liquid. Their talent is more evenly spread around the map.
And that's why I think they should go for Chopper. Chopper is a weak point on this map for me defensively, and this is where you've actually seen Liquid evolve into pulling NAF off the extremity and helping Twist attack middle. And I think that combination can just open up so many options, whether they want to use that to split A, or they just want to use that to threaten CT rotations and then kind of fall back and then play a mid to late round play. I just think that Liquid's so dynamic on this map, both attack and defense, and I think that getting it first is going to give them their best chance at pulling this off.
I mean, is it a complete disaster if Liquid can't get this one over the line?
Yeah.
And for Spirit, is there a particular key to victory that doesn't involve Donk?
I think, again, it comes down to Zontix actually doing pretty well for my money. Like, he is an extremity player on this map, but he's been able to be pretty successful in that throughout the course of Shanghai and recent events, going for openings and finding him. When he's not, he's been a good trade fragger. I think that that's actually, for me, the X factor. Because, I know I'm going to get from Donk on an in-and-out basis. We all do. We all know we're going to get from Shiro as well. He's always been that trusty sidekick, but more on the passive front. You need Donk to have someone else that can kind of help him be the aggressor. And in some cases, it's just been Chopper going in first to sacrifice himself so Donk has a more favorable duel. But sometimes it has been Zontix, and so far I've been impressed with him in Shanghai.
The most important people on Team Spirit are Chopper and Halley, because you need to prepare well for this game. Liquid plays in a very dynamic way, especially on their CT side. So you need to prep your players to be reactive and to hit timings and not be as scared of utility. If you get blocked by a smoke, you still need to hit the timing and go. Otherwise, Liquid is going to outposition you whole game long. They do a great job of disguising, sort of where they're weak or buying time to make aggressive plays with utility, right? And this is something for Spirit. You can't just be, once Liquid does something and then you react, it's too late. You need to be able to anticipate in this game. That's what their players need to be able to do on the server. That's the point that Halley and Chopper needed to nail home before the game started.
Yeah, and obviously we have seen them drop this map over the course of the RMRs and the Major, Dust. Perhaps to opponents are a little bit surprising, certainly worse than Team Liquid.
Yeah, that's no doubt that it's a map that at times has been good for them, but it has kind of failed them a little bit. And I do think that one thing that Spirit could do to try to be a little bit more dynamic is to try to move Shiro's op around a little bit more defensively, try to get some different looks to him. But it's also going to be about Donk. He's the one that's going to be guarding that B connector on the CT side. But he's also a guy who is very mobile in his own right. I think at some point this game they're going to have to shift his position to kind of help things out.
All right, guys. Well, thanks.
Wake up, Mom. It is the Shanghai Major, and here we are. Perfect World has brought us an epic display of Counter-Strike for the Asia region. We are in day number 2 of the playoffs. It's been a very long road to get here, but finally we get to celebrate the best in the world at the game we love so much. My name is Sam. I'm going to be keeping you company for the first quarterfinal of the day, and joining me on the desk, we have Maui Snake, as well as Richard Lewis's little Moodang. Gents, how is it going today? I mean, we had so much fun yesterday. I know we're going to talk now about Heroic versus G2, which allows us to pivot all the way to Manasi, because he has had a really good tournament, Dust. He's put up a really good showing, and G2, Maui said it at the start of the RMRs, definitely in contention to win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're always in contention to win the whole damn thing, and they've done it twice, last World Finals and the Fall Finals, but then we had Rio where they went dead last, and even at their time in Shanghai, it's been shaky at moments, right? That overtime game they had to play against Nine Pandas, losing to 3D Max, you know, just things you don't expect a team of that caliber to have happen, but I will say they finished incredibly strong as they got revenge over 3D Max and were also able to beat FaZe to make it to the playoffs.
I mean, Heroic look at this matchup and they think that they have to play their absolute best game today to take down G2. Like, if you're G2, you can probably play your 80% game dust. I honestly think they could play that and still walk away with a victory today. Heroic are no slouches. They are one of the best 8 teams in the world, I think it's safe to say, but G2, they're either 1 or 2, 1A, 1B, whoever you got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where they have proven time and time again they're capable of beating all the elite teams. And yeah, every now and then they'll slip on a banana peel out in front of them. But for the most part, you can count them to be a team that's going to make a deep run. And so far this tournament, you're getting exactly what you want out of kind of the stars of this team. You know, m0NESY and NiKo have been 2 of the top 5 players in the majors so far. I will say mAlps has been a little bit quiet for my liking so far.
He was sick.
This major.
Hey, he was sick.
That's true. That's true.
He was sick.
But let's show you this Gamers 2 paying homage to the old team name for G2, because these two guys are definitely doing some gaming. Maui, you can see again both of them ranked in the top 5 for rating. You can also see they're both killing it when it comes to damage per round and kills per round, and NiKo having incredible impact as well. These two guys are some of the front runners for perhaps an MVP title if they are able to go all the way to the grand finals.
I like how they play. I like a lot of their players, but I don't see them being true world contenders.
I don't know, man. I feel like they've been on the rise. I mean, top 4 finish at Rio, where they're able to beat Vitality. We saw them beat NaVi in that final best of 3 to get this quarterfinal spot. And look, they may struggle in some areas, but they have 2 huge headliners for this team that are just crushing it right now. Look at Nerds up there, just doing so well when it comes to the aggression. He's taking 36% of their opening attempts on the T side with a 54% success rate, huge rating, huge impact, all that jazz. Then Dexter, you know, again, a guy who took a year off from playing, a guy who, you know, struggled to find his footing on this team because he had to miss out on a few tournaments due to different visa issues and things of that nature, but he has been playing a fantastic tournament so far. He's had the most clutches so far this tournament, actually. And then on the CT side, he is just taking so many opening duels and winning such a high amount of him. He's just having crazy impact with the op, and these two guys can go toe-to-toe at G2's talent, in my opinion.
You think they can? Because I was about to say, if this was any other team and this conversation came up, we would be going, well, damn, that's scary. But up against G2, I'm going, well, I mean, can they do it?
Heroic got the short end of the stick here in terms of their draw. If they got any 2 teams that weren't named Vitality, weren't named G2, I would look at those 2 guys you brought up, Dust, and I'd say, you're right. That duo could actually probably take it to Liquid, could take it to Mouse, could take it to the Mongols, but it's NiKo and m0NESY, man. Like,
you're talking about a NiKo and a m0NESY who have lost to 3D Max, who have gone dead last in Rio. Like, I'm not saying that it's going to happen very likely. I'm just saying it is possible, especially when you consider that Kixen's also having a phenomenal tournament as a fragger at the IGL position. His entry work has also been insane. Like, his success rate in entries is like 45%. That's like an entry fragger, not an IGL. It's ridiculous. And look, I think his calling's just going to be better. My only fear is that, yes, G2 has more overall talent that is going to hurt them. And I do think that there are a couple discrepancies in Heroic's map pool that G2 could punish. So that's kind of the big factors for me, besides the obvious, like m0NESY being perhaps the best player in the world, and then NiKo being the most flexible rifler we've ever seen in Counter-Strike. I mean, that's just hard. I mean, NiKo can do everything.
Incredible.
I don't know what to say. I mean, NiKo is just a special character. I mean, he can entry, he can lurk, he can anchor, he does whatever. So I mean, like, it is going to be a tough uphill battle.
Makes my heart throb.
I'm trying to give him something, dude. I'm trying to give Heroic something.
Hey,
like,
of course,
you know,
of course. Yeah, we got to talk.
I got to give him some props.
They got here for a reason. They're top.
Listen, if this is where their tournament ends, this has still been an incredible rise for them, and I can't wait to see more of them.
And I agree with that.
Okay, calm down. They haven't even played yet. Wow, we're already talking about their tournament.
We're excited for the game.
Give them a little bit of hope. There is a little bit of hope.
I'm trying.
You kind of jumped to the other side very quickly, which is what my concern is. But it is pretty much what everyone's thinking, right?
Exactly.
We know we're not going to see Vertigo and in front of those that are permabans, but I'm curious what the picks are, because G2, I think, could attack D2 or Nuke. Those are weaknesses for Heroic.
There we go. It's coming.
I don't think they go with Nuke, Dust. They haven't picked
D2
it once
probably.
Since Snax joined the team, and Heroic going with Ancient.
I like this.
Yeah, I thought that was a big possibility. And okay, wait a second. Right there, that's the first time they've picked this with Snax.
They're trying to pick into opponents' weaknesses right now, which actually I like a lot.
It's supposed to be a punish pick here.
And I like Mirage as a decider that just share the ground. Both teams teams really love Mirage. And that's why I'm glad either team picked it first. Like, go ahead and let that be a decider where you both feel comfortable, but try to find an edge in this opening. And the fact that they went for Ancient on the heroic side of things, I think is a perfect idea. Kind of kicking things off on Ancient. I mean, this is going to be our first battleground here. This is a map that both teams are pretty good on, but I get the slight edge to Heroic just because of the recency that I've seen out of them. They're so good at just playing split pressure, with Nerds being able to just be such a dominant force in middle, but you have Tessus over on the B side of the map as well, so you constantly keep G2 guessing on where you're trying to go. And I just feel like they have really good abilities to not only play default, but just play like the faster pace executes. Meanwhile, I feel like on the G2 side of things, they're a little bit more reliant on just kind of heavy executes, which is fine if you got loads of talent, but for me it's going to be the adjustment factor. What if that stops working? Are they going to be able to find a mid-round or mid-half call that's going to get them out of trouble if they wind up in it?
I actually have pretty strong confidence that Heroic will get off to a half-decent CT or T-side campaign for themselves. I can imagine 5 rounds pretty safely. It's just that when G2 switch to their own T side, do you have the nade protocols? Do you have the crossfires? Are you able to play enough anti-flash positions when they're trying to bombard your bomb site, when they're going to hit A 4 or 5 times in a row? Are you going to be able to stop them with any utility in your belt, or are you going to fall susceptible to sometimes the most simplistic calling I see from any tier 1 team?
When you take a look at the veto as a whole, are we going to 3 maps? I mean, you're not, I understand you're not fortune tellers, but you can have some sort of opinion based on what you've seen here.
Sure. I think that this series could easily go to 3. If I had to put money on one side, though, I would say G2 2-0, but that's mostly just because of player quality. That's mostly just because they have the best player. They have arguably the best player in the world. They have arguably the second best rifler in the world. And so in a game like this, that's usually where things lie.
Okay, so let me swap that out for you then, Dust. I mean, is that it? The only way that Heroic can potentially see themselves in the semifinals is to make sure that either one, they shut down the man on your screen right now, m0NESY, or 2, hope that for whatever reason him and Nico arrive feeling super nervous and don't perform. Is that really the win condition here?
I mean, it is going to be tough to out-op m0NESY, right? If you're Dexter, I mean, that's going to be a tough one, but you just got to hold your ground. I mean, Dexter has done so well on defensive opping throughout the course of this tournament. That's why he has some of the most success in opening duels for the event, is because of his defensive opping. He's also had some big clutches on retakes and post-plant holds. So yeah, he's not going to be able to be as flashy as m0NESY, but he can still, within his own, lane, find ways to have impact. I think for me, the biggest thing we got to watch up in this matchup is Nerds versus Malbs. Those are the 2 guys that are going to be clashing at middle on Ancient a lot. They're going to find themselves in a lot of early to mid-round interactions because G2 likes to play up-tempo, so Nerds will be forced to face him quickly. And I think it's going to come down to, if Nerds can keep up his form, and Malbs has looked a little bit shaky at times, that could tilt the balance just a little bit. But then you got to worry about the follow-up, and that's going to be where things get tricky.
I mean, I would want to just envision it like this. What Snax is doing right here is like he's walking up to a bout in the ring, and he's 25 kilos heavier than his opponent. He's 50 pounds heavier than his opposition. I don't even mean like outside of the server right now. I mean the firepower in the server.
Literally and
and at this point, for Heroic and Kickstand to win this, they need so much more in terms of tactics. They need to basically outthink them twice, twice as hard. It's like they need like 40 IQ points more to outweigh the 25 kilos that weigh in Snax's favor. So that's why it's just like you can do so much right, but you have to play a perfect game here if you are Heroic and want to win, whereas G2 can show up and they can be a little bit nervous. They can mess things up a little bit more, but the wealth of options and firepower, that is so heavily in G2's favor.
I will say this, though, for G2. Like, I just don't want them to get bogged down and get stubborn. Like, I know this team is capable of playing split pressure, too. Like, let Mouse work an area. Let Nico work the opposite. Come together in the mid to late round. I just don't want to see them get pigeonholed into, like, running the same execute on the A-bomb site 5 times in a row like they did against 3D Max. Or, just kind of pigeonholing themselves into B executes. Like, I know this team is capable of playing more proper CS. They just need to show it to me more often, though, in my opinion. Whereas if you're on the Heroic side, you got to find a way to disrupt them. You can't let them get comfortable. You can't let them get the basic map control and then kind of work from that. They're too talented for that. So I want to see Nerds and Tessus be the aggressors. I want to see them try to disrupt G2 before they can get launching off the pad.
This is the Perfect World Shanghai Major, and now we're about to get into the semi-final between 2 of the most storied organizations in the modern Counter-Strike era, FaZe and G2. I'm your host, Richard Lewis, and joining me on the desk, we have got Yanko, obviously a former coach of FaZe, will be leveraging that experience, and Dust Murray, a long-standing veteran of the scene who has followed these two teams and indeed their rise and subsequent demise over the course of the years. Right, guys, let's start by talking about G2. Obviously, G2 are perennial underachievers, I think it's fair to say. They've had incredible lineups historically, haven't always necessarily converted that into trophies, and we're entering into a new era under the Snacks leadership where he's been able to pick up one or two here and there, maybe not the biggest. The major would be a real feather in his cap.
Yeah, absolutely so. And the one player on this roster who knows how it is to lift a major trophy, albeit 10 years ago.
Indeed.
At this point in time. But absolutely for G2, they've won a couple of big ones last year, but it's the biggest ones that elude them. The majors is where they've unfortunately had the worst performances really in the past couple of years. You had to go all the way back to Stockholm. Funnily enough, it seems like every 3 years Nico makes a grand final in the major, so poised for another one here in 2024. But yes, absolutely, it's the one that's always escaped them and the one that they've always underperformed at.
Yeah, I mean, G2 throughout the year has been a team that could simultaneously be the best in the world and simultaneously gut you by doing something crazy and unexpected.
Oh, you don't need to tell Yanko about that.
So obviously winning a couple of titles coming into this, but then having that last place at Rio, even at the RMR, they looked shaky, had that loss to 3D Max, a little bit concerned, but they got their revenge in the major. They beat FaZe already in this major, and they had a great win against Heroic yesterday to really kind of, build up a little bit more confidence in what G2's capable of at this major.
And obviously their opponents, FaZe, in many ways, the underestimated team, I would say, at this major, right?
Well, underestimated, but I don't think not for a good reason. They were the biggest underdog in those quarterfinals, and that was because of the level of play they displayed, including a matchup against, G2 in the elimination stage where they got absolutely trounced. It was the fact that FaZe's players just weren't delivering on the level that we're accustomed to, right? We talk about them and talk about the people, three-headed monster. It was four-headed monster on FaZe, really, but it didn't seem like it. Seemed more like a little puppy, that you would go on and see. But I think here you can see this is just since the addition of Snacks. So this is with the current lineups. And if you go further back, it doesn't get much better for FaZe. Right. G2 has just had the upper hand all season long.
Yeah, I mean, G2 can only claim Nuke as something that they've been able to hold over FaZe. They've lost kind of everywhere else. And really, FaZe is just such an interesting story because early in the year, they were one of the best teams in the world. They came second at the last major. They won Chengdu. They looked hot. And then they kind of just started that slow decline where they were placing 5th, 6th, but they were losing to top teams in the world, and so you kind of gave them a pass. But I think where people really got scared was Cologne. They got knocked out by Saw. Then EPL, they got knocked out by Complexity and lost to Sangal. Like, it's just teams that were well below the prestige of what FaZe is supposed to be. But this major, they have found gusto. Like Rain found it in the RMR, where he was just popping off like crazy. And now they just upset the favorite to win the whole tournament in Vitality yesterday. So the magic is once again kind of showing itself here for FaZe going into the semi.
They both had really strong individuals, and you want to give those individuals space, and they need to be able to take it. Luckily for FaZe, Rops has sort of found his form in the last 2 series that they have played and really was the most important guy for FaZe Clan.
Yeah, Rops has kind of found his old form again at this major. In particular, you can see the numbers here at the bottom, but what I really want to highlight here, Richard, is this huge adjustment that I've seen in Rops' play, and that is that normally he is an extremity player. He's quite passive, more of a lurker, not really looking to do much in the early on situations, but during this major, as you can see, he has increased his opening attempts on the T side by a substantial margin, and he's very successful at it, as you saw. And you notice this a lot on maps like Anubis, Inferno, and Nuke, where he is willing to go for plays now. He feels more bold. Instead of being on the passive end of the spectrum like Jimmy, who you would compare him to in the past, he's kind of more like a Mazzino or a Bit now, where he's willing to make plays and take a little bit of the weight off the shoulders of Rain and Kerrigan, the normal entry frag. I think with Nico there, like I said, that Nuke game, there's only 2 rounds on the CT side. He didn't get a kill, and he had 6 3Ks. It was unbelievable. Just so impactful. He's the second best player in the tournament. And for me, he's the second best rifler in the world. Look, we're going to give Donk his flowers because he's so aggressive. He's such a great entry fragger. But I think that Nico's the most flexible rifle. And Yanko makes the point that sometimes he goes for too much. And I think because it's hard not to. Like, this guy can do everything. He is a Swiss Army knife rifler of Counter-Strike, and he's been that way for a while. He can entry. He can aggressively lurk. He can anchor. He can go for aggressive plays.
He thinks he can op.
Yeah,
he hasn't been doing that. He hasn't been doing that too much lately, but he does have a mad deagle, and that's why he's also dangerous in low buy rounds. So he is just very much like like the heartbeat of this team with, you know, the abilities that he has on the server. But I think coming into Ancient, this is where they have to kind of put their foot down immediately. And I think that it's possible. Look, I think that Kerrigan and Frozen are very good at just kind of pairing up together from default and working different areas of the map simultaneously. I think the big thing they're going to have to do is try to find a way to target middle against Hunter and try to let that be an opening point to mid-round from. And look, at the end of the day, at some point, and it's going to be tough, but their B entries with Rain is going to have to find a way to beat Nico, to get that site and to get them space. And that's going to be one of the biggest matchups probably of the whole game. I mean, one of the things that's going for them is they have won this map the last 8 times in a row that they've played it. They've beaten FaZe before in this tournament. So they have the ability to do it. And they are very strong because they're able to play an effective up-tempo play style where they're able to kind of split their talent up and pressure multiple points at the same time. You know, Nico, a great yard player, Mouths, he can take those entries at ramp or upper. So I think that dual pressure is going to be very key to them being successful, as well as just making sure they have clean takes together as a unit where they load up their talent and they death ball in. And I think, you know, you mentioned m0NESY not needing to have to step up, but it would sure be freaking nice, right? I mean, this guy's supposed to be the best player in the world, and what makes their defense so strong on Nuke is typically because m0NESY is such a mobile operator who can change the game while you have Nico guarding the yard and you have Mouths guarding the ramp. Like, that 3-pronged defense is usually what gets them success on this map. So they need all of that to kind of wake up right here now and to not get shut out by FaZe, which would be unbelievable.
And you saw Donk just in the first semifinal, terrible first map, right? Bounce back and was able to lead his team to the grand finals. So you're hoping for m0NESY, due to the year that he's had, that he's going to be able to repeat it. But one thing that we didn't really touch on is, yes, FaZe, G2 has the upper hand on FaZe in these head-to-heads, but historically, the few times that FaZe has won, it was in the playoffs. It was on the stage in the arena. Problem is, they didn't make that many of them lately, so they didn't face up in that sort of an environment. But that was the few times FaZe could take down G2, it was in this sort of an environment.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we saw FaZe lose to Vitality on Nuke yesterday, but what we did see is what they do have as win conditions on this map. The fact that Rops is willing to be more aggressive in lobby, willing to take entries into ramp, willing to go up first in upper executes and do it successfully, by the way, I think does give them like an added weapon. But I think at the end of the day, the other thing that they're going to have happen is they're going to have Rain be able to handle Nico on the outer yard. Unfortunately, the last dance underneath this night sky, the stars did not shine as bright as they needed to. Meanwhile, FaZe looking fantastic. They are going on such a phenomenal run. We have not seen something like this out of FaZe since Chengdu, since early portions of this year, since the last major, where they are now slaying the favorites time and time again as you see them shatter them off the board there. That's G2 gone, Vitality gone yesterday, and now they're one step away from Kerrigan hoisting his second major title.